Okay, well, here's a bit of an update on some Online Safety Act news. It's one of the core cases at the moment, I think. We covered it earlier, really. It was a company called 4chan that run this, a US-Japanese company. I think it's a US company, really. But it started in Japan. It's called 4chan. It's an old-fashioned retro-style bulletin board. Quite old-fashioned, quite nostalgic looking at it. There's lots of user-moderated content in there. And lots of anime and manga and stuff like that. Anyway, they have failed to respond to some of Ofcom, the British Telecommunications Controller, if you like, regulator, sorry, and they refused to reply to some Online Safety Act communication and were fined £20,000. Now, the UK is demanding that they comply for some reason, and here's where our update is, really. The hamster's verdict. Well, Preston Byrne, who is being appointed by 4chan to represent them, and looked at the £20,000 demand, and he printed it, shredded it, and turned it into bedding for his pet hamster, who is allegedly named Mr. Whiskers. This could be Mr. Whiskers, or it may not be. The lawyer representing 4chan publicly mocked Ofcom, saying his hamster declared the letter smelt of failure. And he furthermore described the Online Safety Act as the most expansive internet censorship regime in the Western world, with no legal weight in America. And I have a tendency to agree with him, and it's rather embarrassing coming from UK, supposedly another bastion of democratic speech, that we're being labelled like this. But I think he really has a point. So this update comes from courtesy of Spiked, who have done this little review of this information. What did Byrne say as well? Well, he says the Online Safety Act is a blank check for censorship. He described it as the most expansive censorship regime in the Western world, as I said. He also argues that the Act holds as much legal weight in America as the UK Prime Minister claiming the moon is made of cheese and expecting Americans to recognise that in law. And he's trying to highlight the perceived overreach and lack of jurisdiction of Ofcom and the UK government. There is somebody who looks nothing like our Prime Minister holding up a moon of cheese. So what's going on here? Well, Online Safety Act, it's not complicated really, but there's a lot to it, and they perform risk assessments, and then they ask platforms to provide bureaucratic reports with irrespective of where they are. So remember, this is British Telecoms regulator asking questions about a American-based company because UK citizens are accessing their website, and they want transparency reports, annual revenue disclosures, and proof that the content is moderated when they ask for it. And there's some big penalties, well, supposedly for this. Fines of up to 10% of global revenue, and even potential imprisonment of executives if they don't comply with the rules. It's a terribly poorly drafted legislation, which seems to think Ofcom has got power to police the World Wide Web, but which it obviously hasn't, making absolutely no distinction between foreign and domestic companies. Of course, there are lots of American companies with a lot of infrastructure in the UK, people like Google and Facebook and Meta, whatever. They've all got big commercial interests in Britain and infrastructure. So there's obviously a worry there for some American companies. Mr. Byrne is obviously very, very annoyed with this, and I can kind of get where he's coming from. The USA is fighting back with something called the Granite Act, which will probably never see the light of day, but I like the idea behind it. It's looking to strip immunity, sovereign immunity, from foreign censors, i.e. Ofcom, who attempt to control US platforms, which is what they're trying to do. Sue for damages, allow Americans to counter-sue for damages equal to the threatened fines, and of course there's some very big fines being threatened by Ofcom. And make foreign states and officials jointly liable, enabling seizure of British assets. Now, I can't imagine this will ever happen, but hopefully it's a nail in the coffin of the Online Safety Act. Not sure. So he's drafted the legislation anyway. I have no idea how long it takes or whether it's possible to get this through in the USA, but that's where we're at. And is it time to make hamster bedding out of the Online Safety Act, or is he just referring to the potential fines? So, as he says, America can't dictate what Ofcom does in its own borders, but we can sure as dictate to them what they can do in ours. So multiple American companies have started to refuse to comply with Ofcom demands. Wikipedia co-founder Jimmy Wales announced his encyclopedia will refuse future restrictions, or they have complied with some requests, I believe. The Online Safety Act is a daft law drafted by people with no idea how the world or the internet works. Hopefully it will fail to control American tech firms. I can't imagine for a second anybody's ever going to pay any of these fines. And Parliament will have to revisit having it all. Anyway, so that's a quick update, say, on 4chan and their legal battle in the US. Well, if you can call it that. We'll keep you up to date with any further pieces of information on the Online Safety Act and associated news. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.